Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you all for coming out tonight to show your support for NARAL Pro-Choice America, for Nancy, and for this cause that is so central to building a country worth our ideals. I gotta tell you, when a little girl dreams big dreams of growing up and changing the world, this little girl never thought she would be handed the reins of such a critical and historical organization at such a monumental time. All right, so Stephanie, Ross warned you I'm a progressive organizer, so I'm gonna do a little version of what Ross did earlier. How many of you in the audience are at a NARAL event for the first time? Stand up. Stand up. Seriously, I want to see you. Stand up. NARAL event for the first time. Check that out. Welcome, you guys. Welcome. That's awesome. How many of you in this room have been working with NARAL and the pro-choice movement for 20 years or more? Stand up. Stand up. Come on, Tina, stand up. That's incredible. All right, now this is where you gotta get really honest. How many of you right now from this room are tweeting? Stand up. Stand up, stand up. When such a rich history meets such new passion and it hits the Twitter sphere, with that combo, how can we not accomplish great things together? One of the reasons we have gathered here tonight in this room is to honor the great leadership of Nancy Keenan. For the last 8 years, Nancy has steered this organization with a steady hand and a clear vision through some of the very challenging times for our movement. We are all indebted to her for that. And on a personal note, Nancy, I can't even see you. Where are you? Oh, there you are. I cannot thank you enough, and you guys gotta understand this, for the grace and the love you have shown in passing this charge to me. Thank you. Transitions like this are a natural moment for us to take stock, to ask ourselves, how far have we come? Where are we headed as individuals, as movement, and as a country? Tonight, as we've discussed, we mark the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. 40 years ago, the basic freedom for women to decide if, when, how, and with whom we have a family was enshrined into law. It is unthinkable to many people today how fundamentally that changed women's lives that one day. Before Roe, the lives of millions of bright and passionate young women were irreversibly altered because of the choices that they were not trusted to make for themselves. Before Roe, the leading cause of death for women of childbearing years in the United States of America was illegal abortion. It is sobering to me personally to think how many people in this room carry memories in their hearts of lives lost too young, simply because the law didn't recognize what we know to be true, that women know best when we're ready to have a family. I do not regret that my generation didn't experience the days of back alley abortions, but I do regret we don't know all the brave leaders who have fought for decades to put those days behind us. So many women have worked so hard to safeguard choice under the law. Because of them, our generations can write our own destiny like never before. We owe them all, you all, an enormous debt. I'm gonna go off script for 1 second and honor my fiance, John Neffinger, who's in the audience, as a unbelievably supportive pro-choice male with whom we have chosen to live our lives together and have a family together, but I'm honoring him because there are so many men in this room, right? Great women and great women's movements are backed by the men who have supported us all along and who are continuing to support us today. It is hard to start naming names, beyond John, of all of the women who have fought this fight because I might never stop, really, and so many of you are in this room. But I do have to call out one more person. Before we had Nancy Keenan and before we had Kate Michelman, we had Karen Mulhauser to lead NARAL. Karen is here tonight. She's over there. I saw her. And I have to thank you personally, and we should all thank you together. And so, as we look forward from today, it's so important to recognize that we stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And our very first job is not to fall off, not to fall back into those dark days our opponents would wish on American women. So 40 years later, how are we doing from up here on these shoulders? Actually, not so bad. As of 2 weeks ago, in a Wall Street Journal poll, 7 out of 10 Americans support Roe. 7 out of 10. If this decision were on the ballot, they'd call that a landslide, right, Stephanie? We'd got a landslide there. It's so important to recognize when we are winning. And that is not to say we don't still have a political fight on our hands. We do, because on choice, as in so many other areas, our politics lag way behind our culture. It often takes a while for some politicians, not naming names, to catch up with the realities of people's lives. As Stephanie noted, this election cycle both surfaced the true colors of our opponents. It's not just abortion anymore, folks. Now it's whether we can have access to contraception or even health care, or even if we know whether or not we were raped. And we seized that opportunity and we went on offense. In race after race, the anti-woman, anti-choice candidate was defeated, bringing us a record number of new pro-choice faces into Congress, and a woman's right to choose was central to many of those contests. Still, for too many women, these victories feel like an illusion. Those same opponents are scoring policy wins at the state level that have devastating impact on women and girls. In my home state of Texas, the defunding of Planned Parenthood means almost half of poor women in that state are going without basic health care, much less being able to decide for themselves how they want to handle an unwanted pregnancy. In Arkansas, just yesterday, the State House voted to ban abortion after 20 weeks of pregnancy with no exemptions for rape and incest. So the basic fight for our basic freedom is still with us. Women's work is never done. Yet as we stand here on the shoulders of giants, we must also look out over the horizon and anticipate the world yet to come, to ask how we build a movement that supports an evolving set of women's choices, some that exist today but were unheard of 40 years ago, some that we can hardly even imagine tonight. The world is changing, and it's changing fast. Women are attending college in record numbers. Women in the United States are choosing to have fewer children and are starting families later in life. Demand for fertility treatment is up. Modern technologies now not only help us avoid having families at the wrong time, but help us to have families at the right time. 2012 was not only a milestone for women in government, it was also a milestone for women in business. 2012 brought what was once unthinkable when we witnessed the appointment of the first pregnant CEO to run a Fortune 500 company. And still, yeah, right? Come on, give it up for that. And still, our politics lag behind our possibilities. Paid sick days, equal pay, family leave, These are the kinds of things women need to make the choices that let us thrive and to thrive in the choices we make. And what we know is that when women thrive, communities thrive, marketplaces thrive, and our country thrives. In 1995, at the United Nations Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing, Hillary Rodham Clinton proclaimed to the world that women's rights are human rights. She went on to say, "We need to understand that there is no formula for how women should lead their lives. That is why we must respect the choices that each woman makes for herself and her family. Every woman deserves the chance to realize her God-given potential." Secretary Clinton's words are as applicable today as they were almost 20 years ago. Choices are expanding in an ever-changing world. Our challenge in the coming decades is not just to beat back those who would restrict those choices, but to marshal the millions of women who want to define what these new choices mean for all of us. Women are thinking bigger thoughts and dreaming bigger dreams for our families and for our futures than ever before. But we cannot do that unless our foundational rights are secured. And those foundational rights will not be secured until we challenge our political leaders to match the policy to the real lives of real women today. This is our charge as a new generation of women leaders, standing up here on these giant shoulders to think hard about how we can be giants too. I hope you'll join me.